You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Garibaldi Red. You'll notice that Matt Davis isn't here, so I'm filling in instead. But we've got two great guests on the show. We've got Michael Temple and Garry Birtles here to discuss, unfortunately, another defeat for the Reds after they lost at home to Bournemouth on Saturday. Please do get your comments in. We'll try and answer as many questions and comments as we can. We'll start by reflecting on Saturday. Yeah, not great. 2 defeats from 2. Michael, we'll start with you. What did you think?
Yeah, disappointed with the result and the performance, to be honest. I was so heartened having watched the Bradford game and the kind of youthful exuberance and the possession and the fact that, you know, Forest's linchpins were rested for that game. I just thought they'd come in fit, fresh and firing. But yeah, ultimately 2 defeats from 2 at the wrong end of the table, and needing a statement now, needing a result to bounce back. So yeah, bitterly disappointing with both the result and the performance, it has to be said. Yeah,
Gary, you were quite critical last week of the game against Coventry. I guess has anything changed since then in your thoughts?
It was the manner of the defeat against Coventry that I think upset quite a few people, going that 1 goal in front again and then trying to hang on to it, similar to last season. And at the weekend, it was always going to be a difficult game against Bournemouth because we know what they're like. And then for them to get a man sent off on the hour mark and then not be able to haul ourselves back into the game was a little bit disappointing. I don't know if Lyle Taylor was injured when he went off, but he was substituted and Lewis Grabban came on. But that surprised me because you've got half an hour left to win a football match or get back in it. And you think, right, okay, let's go for everything we possibly can here. Even if Taylor wasn't playing particularly well, put him and Grabban on, then you've got Myton, you've got Brennan Johnson, and just go for that 30-minute period, hell for leather. Do whatever you can and be so positive as not to lose the game. And I'm not sure whether that happened or not because, I've not seen it. But that would have been, my plan of action. You're losing 2-1. You've got nothing else to lose. If you go and do it by being positive and still lose the game, I haven't got a problem with that. But as I say, more about that the game and the performance on Saturday than I do.
Yeah, I think the substitutions was one thing that the manager came in for criticism for afterwards. Perhaps not making them at the right time, not making them soon enough, making like-for-like changes rather than keeping more attacking players on. I guess it's always easy in hindsight, isn't it? But Carvalho came on with, I think it was less than 10 minutes to go. Lewis Grabban was a like-for-like sub for Lyle Taylor. Chris Hughton did say afterwards that he thought his team had momentum and he didn't want to disrupt that by making a lot of substitutions. But when you lose a game, you're there, that's what you're there to be criticised for, isn't it? If you don't get the substitutions right. What did you think, Michael? Did you think the changes were made at the right time? Or
I can only agree with Gary. I think Forest have a tradition and history of attacking, passing football, and when you're chasing a result and opposition have a key man sent off, you have to go for the jugular. Forest have still got depth, still had dangerous players on the bench, and having seen the impact that Carvalho in particular made against Bradford, the creativity that he brings, the criticism that he perhaps doesn't run backwards with quite as much energy as going forwards. But yeah, go for the jugular, make those positive changes and try not to die wondering.
We can't avoid talking about him, João Carvalho, because he's always the subject of debate among supporters. Where do you both stand on him?
Well, I just agree with Michael there because he wouldn't have had to go backwards for the last half hour because they had 10 men. You just said, right, get on there, get on the front foot. I'm not bothered if you don't defend. We're all right defensively wise. We've got Colback and Yates in there. Just go and do what you do best. Get possession, make things happen, do what you did against Bradford. And that would have been my plan of action. Get him on there quickly because he was full of confidence, 2 goals from midweek. And it didn't happen. It was maybe, and the like for like thing as well. It reminds me of Norwich. That he does the same. Their manager does the same. If he takes Pookie off, he'll put one striker off. If they need to win a game, it'd be like for like. He won't go and say, right, well, we're going to play 2 up front. and try and get something out of the game. It's always like for like. And for me, that just doesn't work. Momentum or no momentum. Just do anything you can to get back in a football match if you're losing, especially against 10 men. You know, if you, like I say, if you've got nothing to lose, which they hadn't, if they'd have lost the game, they were losing it at that point. So what? At least you've tried, you've been positive, and you move on to the next game, which is going to be very important because a certain Brereton Diaz is in decent form and will be looking to rub salt in the wounds even more.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think Carvalho's a luxury player. If he's starting a game, he needs a minder alongside him. But that kind of situation, running at a broken field against 10 men is made for him. And I personally would have introduced him much sooner.
Would you have started him, Michael, do you think, after midweek? Or
probably not. I think he was always going to be an impact substitute, having played that game. He finished his dinner, didn't he? Those two goals are very, very neatly taken, and there was clearly just another level of thought between Zinkernagel and Carvalho for that second goal. I think it was always part of the plan to play him there and not to play him at the weekend. But yeah, look, he gets people on their feet and excited, and he was for me the best option to introduce from the bench, and he came on after 83 minutes. So yeah, needs more time to make an impact. And personally, I wouldn't have started him in the context of what happened before, but I would have introduced him much sooner.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd certainly made their feelings felt there. I think they were chanting for him to come on from almost soon after half time, after he'd gone to warm up. But I think if Chris Hughton didn't know how popular he was with the fans, he perhaps got that sense on Saturday, because they didn't stop singing for him until he actually came on. But
I'd have been tempted to start him. I really would.
Would you?
Yeah, because goals give you confidence. As a striker, you can't wait to get out there and play your next game if you scored the previous game. And it was a big game against a big team that might just have suited him. If it hadn't, you could have said, right, after 45 minutes, you could change it round. But give him 45 minutes, something might just have happened. So I can understand why he didn't start, but I would have been tempted to start him. Yeah.
You mentioned it, Gary, that it's only been 2 games, 2 defeats, but the pressure is now on, isn't it? Going into that third game, another home game. You can't escape it. If you've lost your first 2 games, you really need to get off the mark quite quickly.
Well, I've been talking to a couple of Forest fans, and they're slightly worried already. And I think Chris more or less said that he was a little bit worried. Nothing's happening in the transfer market, despite efforts to bring players in. It seems a strange transfer market at the moment because very, very little is happening across the board. It's apart from the Jack Grealish sort of situation. Lionel Messi overseas, nothing really seems to be changing a great deal. And I said the previous podcast, Forest did have one of the biggest squads in the Championship, but now it's been whittled down more, so there are less options. With COVID, with the things that have happened there, injuries you'll get anyway coming into a new season. So it's vital now that this game on Wednesday is won, really, because you don't want 3 on the trot, because we know Lamouchi had 5 on the trot. And once you're down in that situation, the confidence levels just plummet very, very quickly throughout the squad. You'll have strong individuals who will try and convince everybody else that, right, we're okay. Yes, it's a bad start, but we can bounce back from it. But a majority of players would think, well, looking at that, we're in the bottom 3. If you look at that table and you're in the bottom 3 after 3 or 4 games, and it's a hell of a thing to try and get out of. How many times have we seen it over the past few seasons? We've been down there all season. It's just, last couple of games we've got out of it, and you just don't want that, that pressure again.
Yeah, I mean, the next 3 games are obviously Blackburn in midweek, Stoke away, and then the next league game is Derby. What would you see as a good points haul, Michael, from those 3 games? What do you think Forest should be looking for?
Well, look, let's ink in the 3 points against Derby for starters. And then I think we've got to win one of the other 2, just for that narrative, as Gary said, not to be about the negativity of relegation and avoiding the bottom 3, but being aspirational and looking towards the top 6. I think Early signs are that may well be a struggle, but we don't want to be in that situation again. We have to be looking forwards. I still think there'll be more business done over the next few days, and that considered recruitment could well boost the squad, boost the feeling of the fans. But yeah, as Gary said, first things first. Let's avoid defeat against Blackburn. Let's play with positive intent. Let's not go into our shells, pick an attacking lineup and try and put a smile back on the fans' faces, and also instill some confidence into the squad.
Yeah, there's always a temptation to overreact, I suppose, a little bit after just 2 results. Gary, what do you think Forest should be looking for from the next 3 games? Blackburn, Stoke and Derby.
Well, I was always told to take one game at a time. You can't look at the Derby game. You just got to say, right, we've got Blackburn. That's the next game. That's all that matters. 90 minutes. We have to win that. We're at home. It's a game we can win. And, if we don't win, then the pressure becomes more intense. And then you've got a difficult one at Stoke away. And as I say, you squad confidence just plummets. It can do. Luckily, I never played very much in a team that was, down, struggling. I was always, lucky enough to play in teams that were doing well. So I've never actually felt that feeling of being down there and worrying. But I can believe it's intense, the worry that you would have, because the expectation levels for Nottingham Forest are particularly high and have been for seasons. And every season we keep being optimistic, and every season it just seems like it's, here we go again. It's one of those deja vu. And the Derby game, they've had a bad start to the season. 1-0 up, and they conceded 2 in injury time. So their confidence levels will be absolutely rock bottom as well at the moment. But local derbies can go anyway, can't they? Whether you're top of the league and they're bottom, the bottom team can beat the top. Local derbies are like that. So let's concentrate on Blackburn. Let's not concentrate on Brereton, what he's going to do. Let's concentrate on what we're going to do. Let's have a positive lineup. I think he might actually start Carvalho maybe this time. It could be the sort of game that might suit him. And you need creativity. He has that. We've never doubted his ability to create in that final third. It's just the consistency that he's lacked. And I think the adjustment to the Championship, because it's such a difficult league, it's a hard league. And if you're one of the players who are making things happen, the opposition know that, and they'll do anything to stop that early in a game. So we've seen Mighton get fouled many times. Brennan Johnson so far getting fouled many times. And Carvalho comes under that, same umbrella. But he's got to climb above that and say, right, okay, yeah, you're fouling me because I'm a good player, and I'm going to hurt you even more now. That's the sort of mentality you have to have. When I was playing, I was told, yeah, if you get kicked and you're down, don't let them know they've hurt you. Get up, smile in the faces, run past them, and they hate that, centre-halves or people who have kicked you. If you show them you're hurt, they'll do it again, and they'll love doing it. If you smile and laugh at them, they don't like it. So just do that.
Paul Reedy in one of the comments says, 2 DMs in a team mean negative football. There is a lot of debate about that, whether Ryan Yates and Jack Colback are too similar, whether they can play together. I'm not sure that Chris Hughton's going to change his formation. He's pretty stuck on this 4-2-3-1 with 2 defensive midfielders in there. Michael, what do you think? Do you see it as defensive? Do you think Colback and Yates can play together?
It can be defensive. It can become 4-5-1, but it can also become 4-3-3. I think it's the formation. It's a very fashionable formation. We've seen England employ it with Declan Rice and Kelvin Phillips. Clearly, the point of having those 2 defensively minded central midfielders in there is to release the 3 that are just in front and give them that license to attack. Are Yates and Colback too similar? Yeah, possibly. I just wonder if Yates could be supplemented with more of a box-to-box midfielder rather than have Colback anchoring as well. But the thought process is, without him wanting to play 2 strikers, which he clearly doesn't want to do, he wants to have the attacking presence out wide. He feels that it's a necessary part of being hard to beat, whilst having those 3 attackers in behind Lyle Taylor. So look, I don't think it's worked for Forest. I think we've persevered with 4-2-3-1 for a long time now, without seeing an uptick in results. So maybe it is time for a change. but going to plan B after 2 games will certainly be not be on Chris Hughton's agenda, regardless of the pressure that he will come under if this run continues. So yeah, let's I think Forest fans want to see more attacking intent, but I think there is a more attacking version of this system rather than trying to redesign from scratch and introduce a new one so early in the season.
You a fan of it, Gary? That 4-2-3-1 with 2 defensive midfielders?
No, not at all. Never have been, never will be, because I can understand in some games, but the Coventry game, all due respect to Coventry, they're an average team, and playing Colback and Yates as defensive midfielders would have given Coventry a massive lift, because they can play around that. They have the players to be able to do that. If you're playing against somebody like Bournemouth, I can understand it more, and I'd say, yeah, okay, but you've got to be flexible with it. You can't just play it all the time. You have to look at your opposition and say, right, this is how they play. Maybe today we don't need 2 defensive midfield players. It didn't, we talked about those stats last week, and they were horrendous to look at because we were in the bottom 2 or 3 in every category of those stats in the final third. And that's because we've got no creativity. We isolate 1 man up front, and we've got 2 defensive midfield players. So what would you rather have this season after those horrendous stats last season? You like improvement, you like difference. And so far, we're not seeing that difference. It's exactly the same as it was last season. And if it carries on like that, what's going to happen? We're going to be down in that situation again. We're all going to be doom and gloom. And you've got to change things now. Now and again, if they're not working, yes, if you're playing the West Broms, if you're playing the Bournemouths, maybe stabilise things, even at home a little bit. Always respect your opposition, but don't bow down to them. And I think you bow down to oppositions by doing that with 2 defensive midfielders.
Yeah, Richard Ottaway says Sal and Garner, James Garner obviously both work there. The DM role needs an athletic, dynamic player like Kante. Look at ours and we're getting it so wrong. I guess the hope is that they will get James Garner in at some point, and it could change that pairing. People will say, well, Tyrese Forner did really well in that cup tie against Bradford, and he was controlling the centre of the park, spraying passes around. But he's young, isn't he? He's untested at championship level. It is a bit cool to throw in youngsters, isn't it, at this stage and this level of football. Michael, would you have brought Tyrese Forner in, or do you try and ease him in gently, do you think?
I'm with your commenter. I think we should sign Kante. I think he'd solve our problem.
That would be all right, wouldn't it?
Probably the best defensive midfield player in the world.
Forner was outstanding against Bradford. Really, really caught the eye, despite everybody there really to watch Carvalho and Zinchenko. They'll blood him gently. I think Houghton and Gary Brazil have been truly excellent at introducing the academy graduates at the right time. Is it time to expose him? There's only one way to find out. I think he'll need a few appearances from the bench before he's considered a starter. But yeah, what a prospect. I think he was released by Brighton and picked up by Forest, and has clearly caught the eye. His all-round performance against Bradford, where the pace of the passing, the positive intent was there for all to see, was extremely pleasing. And yeah, I think he's a really exciting prospect. Would I blood him just yet? Probably not.
It's difficult, isn't it, Gary, trying to get that balance between giving the young players the chance and taking that leap of faith in them, I guess.
Well, it's probably been one of the stronger championship starts to a season, I think, with the teams in there at the moment. And it'd be unfair, because results are going badly, then to expect young kids to come in and get us out the mess that we're in. Not mess we're in early, but we're in the bottom 3. We haven't won a game in the league. Bradford, we were expected to beat them, and we did beat them. So, that was all well and good. Then it was all about the preparation for the Bournemouth game. We had the opportunity to get something out of that game because they had a man sent off. We got half an hour. We didn't do it. So then you're going to look at that and your confidence levels drop again, because you thought, well, we perhaps should have got something out of it. And again, it's all about the senior players stepping up to the hockey, as it were, and saying, right, we'll take this by the scruff of the neck. Because last season, we mentioned all the negative things about the final third, but we were one of the best defensive teams in the league. Chris got that spot on. And when you've got one of the best defences in the league, it gives you more scope then to be more positive further up the pitch, because you've got so much confidence in that back four and that goalkeeper that you can allow much more freedom going forward. But I don't think we do that. I don't think we release that freedom. We don't allow ourselves to go and take the game to teams as much as we probably could, because when I play, that back four I played with, Lloyd, Burns, Anderson, Clark, Barrett, you knew for a fact that you could do what you wanted up there because they were just so good. And it's a similar situation with that back four. When you got McKenna and Worrell together, the left back spot is still a problem for me, I think. The right back area looks pretty good at the moment. So you've got that right. Then say, right, we can maybe just have the one protective midfield player and then play the ones that can, the Carvalhos, let them go and do their tricks. Let them go and do their stuff in that final third. Give them that freedom. Don't shackle them. If you're playing one up front, give that one man up front all the support he possibly can, because at times that one man has been isolated. Taylor's got a lot of stick, but he runs his legs off to try and make things happen, and he tires because he's having to do it by himself. And when it does come his way, I think sometimes he's that shattered because he's trying to close down across that back line to stop people coming out. And he's an honest player in that respect. But, he needs help. Any striker, I played that lone role by myself in the European Cup final, as I said before, and I was absolutely shattered, absolutely spent. It's not an easy position to play, believe me. But I was lucky. I'd got support. Even though we were sat deep, I held the ball up and I got you get support in there. And at the moment, I just think we're being shackled from the halfway line forward. I think we have got the potential to go and take it to teams. I think we have the potential to go and win games, but we have to release that ability that is in those forward areas and take it to the opposition instead of being a little bit cautious.
It's also, you mentioned it, Gary, about being defensively solid. Last year that was their strength, but the goals that they've let in these first two games have been pretty poor, pretty sloppy goals. I know it was great finishing on Saturday, but to be cut open like that, it's not really what you'd expect from Forest. I think perhaps they're missing Joe Worrell, in missing the presence that he brings. Is there a question mark, do you think, about Brice Samba, Michael? Should he have stopped either of those two goals? Or
Well, there's a question mark over him in the 96th minute against Coventry, but
no, there wasn't. No, there wasn't. Not for me. That was the defence's fault. Sorry, I am not having him blamed for that goal. That was purely bad defending for me.
Yeah, look, I think 9 times out of 10, he would have backed himself to keep it out. But yeah, clearly what happened in front of him and the fact that Yates conceded that free kick quite needlessly in the build-up would have really frustrated him. And I think in that analysis session, fingers would have been pointed elsewhere. I was going to come on to say I would keep faith with Brice Samba. I think over the course of 2 years, we've seen that he's excellent, commands his area, his distribution is amongst the best in the championship. He's clearly a footballer as well as a keeper. But yeah, he would have had a long, hard look at himself at Coventry. Every keeper makes a mistake. Let's back him, crack on. He'll come good.
I guess one of the positives is that the new signings have looked good. Philip Zinkenagel has looked really bright. I thought Osei Tutu did pretty well, even though he's more of a right back. At left back, he did okay on Saturday. So is there a sense that if Forest can get the right players in, Chris Hughton could maybe do something more with this squad, do you think? What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, Chris Hughton will definitely be banging on doors, asking for more recruitment. Obviously whispers about the centre-half from Reading. I think a striker will be pretty high on that list now. And the great unknown is what Forest's FFP position is. There's this cyclical method of having a year where you go for it. And we saw that last year, often followed by a year where you have to cut your cloth accordingly, have more considered recruitment, maybe look to get 1 or 2 off the wage bill and out the door. But Chris Hughton's a very dignified man. I like the fact that he doesn't conduct his feelings, his business through the media or through whispers. I think privately, internally, he'll still be wanting to bring 2 or 3 in.
Yeah. Do you think they desperately need some signings in, Gary, before the window closes?
I think it's obvious. You mentioned the Reading centre half. I'd rather have the Reading centre forward. Lucas João, 25 goals last season. I mentioned it in the last podcast. His height gives him an extra dimension, and it gives the players around a player like that an extra dimension, can feed off him. So I'd rather see somebody like him come in. Going back to the goals at the weekend, Chris said he thought there was 2 soft goals. I think that's a bit harsh on the opposition, because they were beautifully struck goals. And you can say what you like, the one at the near post, if you strike it particularly well and particularly hard, sometimes you can be positioned perfectly, but it still beats you because of the quality of the strike. And going back to the Coventry game about the one that he couldn't keep out, I said last week, the reaction from the defenders was absolutely zero. He's made a fantastic save low down to keep it out. Then the next thing you think is, right, defender, please react. No reaction. Then it comes again. Defender, please react. No reaction. And in the end, he's just scrambling on his back after making a wonderful save in the first place to try and keep it out, and with no help from anybody around him. So that's why I think it was harsh to blame him for that. I would never, swap him at the moment, because everybody said he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league, and rightly so. Yeah, every goalkeeper makes a little bit of a clanger now and again. I think the clangers he's made have been for the right reasons. He's been trying to take pressure off his defence, and he's sometimes misjudged it in the air, but only because he's trying to do the right thing. As a centre half, I played there. When you've got a good goalkeeper behind you, you are absolutely delighted, because they take pressure off you. And he tries to do that. And he's part of that defence from last season. Not just a back 4, it's a back 5, him as well. And that's why we had one of the best defences in the Championship. And we still have one of the best defences in the Championship. Let's go and build forward now. You've got that right. Chris, no surprise in getting that right, because he was a cracking defender himself, played against him many times. And he knows about defensive qualities, and he's got that right. But now, somebody say, let's go and get him. Somebody who's played up front, maybe, go and have a chat with somebody and say, well, what do you think we need? And, it's always nice to be able to talk to other people and say, what do you think? And I think it's blatantly obvious we need something up in that final third. And I think then we've got the players around, if we get a decent striker up there, to be a threat. But at the moment, we're not a massive threat.
Anybody worried by the first 2 games? Michael, are you worried?
No, I'm certainly not worried. Glass half full. I think there's more to come. There's definitely more improvement from within as well. I think that's the point that Gary's making. We know within that squad, we have the ability to shut up shop, keep clean sheets, and be, have that defensive solidity, which was the hallmark of big parts of last season. But the problem is that the taps have been turned off when it comes to goal scoring. We all thought Lau Taylor was a potential 20-goal man. We knew a year ago that Lewis Grabban was a 20-goal man. Let's see where those boys get to when they're fully fit and firing. But no, certainly not worried at this point.
Gary, you concerned at all? Or?
Michael, after this coming Wednesday, if we lose, will you be worried then?
Well, yeah, because we'll have played three, lost 3, and then you do start to see that gap difference opening up. Well, as it happens at the minute, no one's won 2 games. So the top of the Championship is a series of teams that have won 1 and drawn 1. Everyone's finding their feet. We've all seen last year's Premier League table after 10 games is unrecognisable at the end. I just think it's too soon to make that judgment. The game of cat and mouse and brinksmanship in the transfer window is still ongoing. If I was going to nail down a prediction now, I'd say Forest will recover and become a mid-table side. So yeah, not worried at this point in time. Far too early to panic. But yeah, I'd be slightly concerned if we lost to Blackburn.
Very diplomatic.
Gary, you sound like you might be a little bit concerned.
I'm concerned at the manner of defeat rather than defeat, especially the first game. I'm not seeing the second game, so it'd be wrong of me to comment on that. But I can only go on, playing against 10 men for, we've mentioned it, for half an hour. don't change like for like. Just if you've got half an hour, it's fantastic. You've actually got half an hour to try and get back in it. You're only 1 goal behind, and like I said, I won't go on again. But you go for it, hell for leather. Last 30 minutes. If it doesn't work, you lose the game. You hold your hands up and say, "Yeah, but at least we went for it. We tried to get something out of this game." So we've got to move on from that. It's gone now. Preparation is paramount, as I said before, and that has to be for Wednesday. It's about positivity now, because it is only 2 games. I'm not worried at the moment. I'm slightly concerned, but it's not a major worry at the moment, because, like Michael said, nobody's won 2 games, which is massively surprising. In all the other leagues, well, you can't. Premier League's only just 1 game in, but the other other leagues, they've won 2 out of 2. So we're only 4 points behind. It's not massive, but if you lose your 3rd game, then other teams start picking up, and there's a gap becomes apparent. Then even at this early stage, it can be a difficult thing to hold back, as we've seen from previous seasons, because you can get dragged further in, because the game after that is Stoke away, and that won't be easy either if you've lost your 3rd game. So I do anything we possibly can to win this game on Wednesday, and just be positive. A little bit more positivity will lift people, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Carvalho start. And I don't know who'll play up front, whether he'll play Grabbin instead of Taylor. Be interesting to see the lineup and how he goes about it. Whether it be Colback and Yates again. Yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing. The actual starting lineup for me.
Yeah, I think he said that Lewis Grabbin wasn't quite ready to start on Saturday, but another few days perhaps he might be. So will be interesting. I guess to end, or nearly end, on a big positive was having fans back in the City Ground on Saturday. Made such a difference. First league game with fans back. Obviously we had supporters in on Wednesday, but it was a proper crowd on Saturday rather. Made a lot of noise. Great to hear Mull McIntyre again. It's just good to have them back, isn't it? Good to have fans and proper football back. It's been sorely missed over the last year. Gary, could you imagine playing without a crowd and what that would have been like? And I guess probably reserve football players have experienced it before, but it's different, isn't it, when there's so much riding on a game?
Yeah, I mean, I played in reserve football, obviously, before I got in the first team, and there were fans in there, but it was echoed around the stadium. But you had to lift yourself. It was a matter of fact that you had to do that. I mean, I was at Leicester on Saturday. I was commentating on the Leicester Wolves game, and the noise in that stadium was just absolutely immense. I said the previous week I went to see Mansfield v Bristol Rovers. I know even 6,500 people made one hell of a noise, and it's just you watch people's faces, walk into the stadium, and there's just such a buzz about the place, such smiles on everybody's faces, and you can tell the players, the response from it lifts you massively. And it was just a great 90 minutes to commentate on, because we've been waiting so long for it, and it changes things. It's one of the hardest games or sports of the whole lot without fans. I think it is the hardest without fans, to try and lift yourself. Athletics, we've seen in the Olympics, world records being broken. You can do it. Golf course, you can do it on a golf course. You can still play and do that. Cricket, yeah, similar. But football is just a massive fans game, and just shows how important football fans are. And we should not take them for granted ever again, because they're the soul of the football club. Without them, there's no football club as such. And Forest fans have been absolutely fantastic, home and away, for season upon season. Even though things have not been going well, they're still there. They still sell out more or less every away game, and the noise they make at home is just absolutely inspirational. And it makes you proud to be a Forest fan. It really does. And we just hope that can generate to the players, and the players can respond, and we can start winning games. That's what it's all about. Collective.
Do you think it might lift some of the players, Michael? I mean, there's players, I suppose, that like to entertain, don't they? Your Bruce Sambers, your Joe Lollies, that really respond to a crowd. Do you think it can make a big difference for them?
Yeah, of course it does. I'll spin around, actually. I'm looking out the window here at Trent Bridge.
Oh, look at that.
The kind of hubbub and the clear up is ongoing. But yeah, I mean, look, working in the stadium industry has been really difficult for the past 2 years, because we're used to that that crowd, that energy, that lift that it gives to our sports teams and players. I watched a season of behind closed doors cricket here last year, and it was quite depressing actually, and the players felt a kind of lack of energy and a real difference in the manner in which they had to go out their business. So yeah, of course it makes a difference. The adrenaline that which Gary will recall from his years in the professional game.
I'm not that old.
Well, it makes a difference. I play in the Nottingham Sunday League. We're lucky if there's one man and his dog watching us. But
I played in the Sunday League as well, so I know exactly where you're coming from.
It makes a massive difference. It makes a huge difference. Players give 20% more. The energy levels are that much higher, and yeah, home advantage really counts. So let's make sure it does this week.
You win for best office, Michael.
Yeah, thank you.
What have you?
That was some game last night there, wasn't it? Qualified last night, didn't they?
Yeah, quite. So I don't want to get the cricket plug in, but Trent Rockets onto the knockouts, and yeah, hopefully the Nottingham public will get behind Notts Outlaws in the Blast quarter final here at Trent Bridge on the 25th of August. But look, there is a great kinship between all the sports teams and clubs across Nottingham. Massive Forest fan myself. The rugby boys were here yesterday. Joe Worrell was here yesterday. We're lucky enough to go and support Forest. And the impact and the buzz that's apparent when our teams are doing well is just incredible. So look, let's hope everything can pick up and we can get behind Nottinghamshire's teams across all sports this season.
It was great to see Samet doing so well last night as well.
Yeah, you can't put him down, can you? I think there's another huge Forest fan. But yeah, every time somebody writes Samet off, he comes back and does something like that. Just an incredible performer. Definitely feeds off the crowd. And I think he's got a couple more trophies to win this year.
Yeah, you can learn a lot from people like Samet because he just loves what he does. You can see he always plays with a smile on his face, and that's what we want collectively around Nottingham. We want Notts to do well. We want Mansfield, cricket, hockey, ice hockey, and Forest, of course. But we're a very small city compared with a lot of others, and we're blessed to have as much sports at the higher levels that we have. We just want to be a little bit more greedy, and there's nothing wrong with being greedy and want to be eating at the top table. But let's concentrate on Wednesday, and let's hope Notts cricket from last night could inspire Forest football to go and win a football match on Wednesday, because that might just kickstart our season.
Well, that sounds like a good positive way to end. So thank you both. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for coming on and answering our questions. And thank you to everybody that's watched and commented. And we shall be back again soon.